Today I'm going to go through the beginner's guide to the planche. Now this is great for you guys working towards the tuck planche. I'm also going to go through how we train for the front lever. Again, beginner's guide, so great if you're starting out in calisthenics, bodyweight strength exercises. And this is going to be one of my quick tutorials, so again, no fluff. Okay, let's first do a nice and quick warm up. We basically just need to make sure that the hands, the wrists, and the shoulder blades are happy to do the planche. So I'm going to externally rotate, that creates a bit more space. I'm going to spread the fingers. I'm going to roughly have the hands underneath shoulders. I'm going to push into the floor as hard as I can. I'm going to protract, so I'm going to round my upper back. So you shouldn't be able to see my shoulder blades. And then from that point, I'm just going to do some circles. So I'm slowly exploring the wrists, making the circle bigger and bigger. I'm going to change directions. Trying to keep the arms straight with this, keep pushing down into the floor. We can peel the hands up and down a little bit like I do for my handstand warm up. Make sure the wrists are nice and happy. Just do enough so you can put weight into them. So for everyone, it's going to be slightly different. If you spend all day like this on a computer, this is going to feel horrible, so you just need to get your body used to it. If you're not so bad, if you're pretty happy there, you're going to have to obviously do less warm-up than the person that's a little bit tighter. So just get into a position where you feel comfortable, and then we can start loading it more. So protraction, pushing the floor away from us. I'm going to try and hold that protracted position now, so rounded upper back, and see if I can go up onto my toes. Now I want to make sure when I'm in this position that I'm in a good plank position. I don't want to be collapsed at all. I want to be having a positive position. So a bit like a hollow body position flipped over. And we just want to build some capacity and time here. Now if you find when you go up onto your toes like that, that you're retracted slightly or you can see your shoulder blades or you just don't feel strong, stay on your knees but walk the knees back a little bit further. Protract there and lean forwards a little bit more. And do your conditioning holds there. So I recommend you doing like 20 to 30 seconds in this position. Then we're going to do the opposite, so up on the rings. I'm just going to throw myself upside down. So get upside down into a tuck position, so like this. Now I'm going to hang out here, and I'm not too worried about what the shoulder blades are doing at the moment. I'm just going to show control and just hang around in this position and get used to this. Now if you struggle with going upside down, or you're using a bar where you can't go upside down, you might just have to play around with that. You could go into a position like this and even use a wall to get up, and you can put your shins or your ankles against the bar. So we want to get up into this position so my hip is much higher than my shoulders. Okay, then we're going to go back into the planche again. This time I'm going to go into a straight body push-up position straight away with protraction. Again, make sure you can hold that upper back position like this. Slightly easier would be to have your feet wider, but try and stay protracted. And then all I'm going to do is a planche lean. Now with the planche lean, I'm just going to see how far forwards I can go, keeping that protracted position. Ideally, I'll turn my toes over. So everything's trying to push up to that upper back position. And I'm going to hold this for around 15 seconds. Trying to keep as still as I can, but pushing up constantly towards that protraction. So it's like the energy is going up and forwards. Now this is definitely a good one to video, so check you're in that right position. Just be careful that you're not doing this with your hips, and your hips are roughly in line with your shoulders. You stay protracted and you lean forwards as far as you can. Make sure as well that the arms are dead straight. Okay, back into the front lever position. So we're going to go back to that inverted position where the hips are nice and high relative to the shoulders. And then all I'm going to do is start to sink my hips down. I'm pushing my legs out into my arms. So I've got a bit of friction there with the goal of trying to get my hip in line with my shoulders. I'm going to hold for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then ideally, I'm going to pull back up again. So I'm just like teasing that position. Okay, back to the planche position. We'll use that home position we created before. So protraction, arms dead straight, really pushing out as hard as I can, slightly leaning forwards. Now I'm going to try and keep my toes as light as possible, and I'm going to walk my toes in. So the goal being to get the hip around shoulder height as I bring the knees into the elbows, hold for a couple of seconds, and then walk backwards. Now notice as I'm walking backwards, I'm trying to keep the weight in the upper back. I'm not dropping the weight back to my feet. So make sure, again, you're pushing up in towards that position. And we want to create around 20 to 30 seconds time under tension doing that. So it depends how slow you walk in and how slow you walk back again. But the goal being just to keep as much weight through that upper back and shoulders as you can. Now, because we're just focusing on those beginner positions today, I'm not going to talk about retraction or trying to break the bar or do anything like that to start with. All I want you to focus on is good positioning. So basically a strong position with the hips and the shoulders, and as you come down to your front lever, everything lines up and you just fight to stay there. So again, that same starting position, so inverted in that position, try not to swing on the rings at all. Now I'm going to not squeeze the legs into the arms so much, I'm going to squeeze the legs together, and I'm going to bring the hip down in line with the shoulder. See if I can hold there. So the goal is to hold around 10 seconds in this position. Now if it's too hard, I can push the knees out to the arms, or I could have the hip up a little bit higher. Now the goal here is to do that hold, come back up to inverted, show control, come back down again. Now the tighter you can keep the tuck, the easier it's going to be. If your tuck is more open, then it's going to feel much heavier in that direction. So try and squeeze everything together as best you can. Okay, now I'm going to use sliders, or you could use a frisbee or a piece of cardboard on carpet. Set up in that same position, so my toes are going to go on top of the slider. Have planche hands, so that external rotation, push up to protraction, lift the hips up. Now trying to hold this position, I'm going to slide in. Try and keep the hips in line with the shoulders, slide back out. Really focusing on pushing up towards that protracted position, up and forwards all the time, trying to get all the way into the upper back and shoulders, keeping the arms dead straight. And again, I could work repetitions there, or I could just go nice and slow and try to build that time under tension in that position. But really focus on the height of the hip, the height of the shoulders. They should roughly be that same height. Be careful the hip isn't going too high, and make sure we're not loading weight back into the legs, especially as you slide backwards. Okay, now for most people, the front lever is much easier than the planche. So I'm going to show the next progression, which is slightly harder. So we're going to go down in that tuck position again. I'm going to keep my hip in line with the shoulders. I'm just going to try and take my knees away from my chest slightly, which is going to increase the lever arm in that direction. But I want to keep my heels at my butt. So exactly the same start position, nice and high. I'm going to bring the hip down in line with the shoulder, and then I'm going to open the knees away from the chest, heels staying at the butt, trying to push away with the arms, keep the arms dead straight. Now you can look at where my knees are relative to my arms, and that's a good way of measuring that distance. And then I can pull back to my tuck and come back up. Now obviously we can progress in terms of time, so I could hold for longer, which would be harder, or I could open out for a shorter amount of time. But just remember, if you're decreasing the time in the sets, then you need to increase the amount of sets. If you're increasing the time in the hold by making it easier, you need to do less sets. Now, once we've done those planche exercises and they're feeling quite comfortable, we can now start to test the tuck planche. So the tuck planche is this position where we're in a tight tuck and our toes are no longer on the floor. Now you could slide into it like we used before, so the sliders, and push up towards the tuck planche, or you could just try going into the position. So I'm going to make a tight tuck. Now it is slightly easier if I open my legs out and push my legs into my arms a little bit, because I'm trying to make the tuck as tight as possible, and any little bit of friction on the arms is going to make that slightly easier. So I'm going to externally rotate, push up into protraction, push up as hard as I can, lift the toes, see if I can float there. Now obviously the goal here is to get to around, 5-10 seconds and show control. Now if you struggle with that and can't get up yet, that's fine, because it's a bit of a jump up from the last exercises. So that means we've got a couple of options to get up into that position. So I could use the friction on the legs, so I could push those legs into the arms, and that would be one way of making it easier. The other way is I could use a band assist. Now the band assist is really good because it can give you just enough to actually feel like you're in the tuck planche, and you can slowly reduce the height of the band or the thickness of the band. Now the best place to put the band is around the hips, but it's slightly harder than around the feet. So I could put it around my feet like this, which helps to pull me up to a tuck planche, and that throws me up in the air. Now that is obviously much easier, but it probably over helps you. So I'd try and stay clear of that one unless you're struggling with the other variations and just want to feel what the tuck planche is like when the feet are off. But I'd try and go, if you can, around the hips. So starting that tuck position again, exactly the same as we started when we were doing it without the band. External rotation, protraction, bring the knees in as close as you can to your chest, and then lift off. And again, trying to get your hold time, 10 seconds, show control, have the hip in line with the shoulder, make sure you're keeping protracted, make sure you're keeping the arms straight, and then reduce the height of the band until the point where you can start to do it without the band. Now, if you are training calisthenics and bodyweight strength exercises, if you're going for things like press handstands and that, I would definitely include some planche training in your weekly routine, but it depends where your goals are in terms of your planche ongoing. Do you want to go into like straddle planches and full planches eventually? If so, then the planche definitely needs to be a big part of your training. And I highly recommend that you include the front lever work with the planche because they go hand in hand. It's like working chin-ups and handstand push-ups. Let me know down below if you have questions regarding the planche. Let me know if you would like more planche videos and let me know how you go. Speak to you next time. Thanks guys.